Welcome to whatever we are, our impromptu broadcast about the Bolshevik Revolution. Um, uh, this is me, your host, and Janet's here with us.
Hi.
And aw, thank you so much. It's great to know that I was missed. Hello, Tavarishi. Yeah, I'm so glad to know. Well, so we will be back with our regular broadcast once we figure out how to revamp the podcast. The thing with the podcast is that I felt like there was a lot of people reading the blogs, but not enough people listening to the podcast subscriptions. And so we want to revamp it so that people find it more interesting. And one thing is maybe one idea is following a long topic for like 3 months, like Operation Gladio, or what's the other one that the CIA, the FBI did domestically?
All that.
What's the domestic version?
Oh, what?
COINTELPRO.
Oh,
Domestic.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Or we could do it like more like a theme each week, and instead of having one guest, we can kind of have little clips based on the theme, like This American Life, but we don't hide imperialism. Like they did this one episode about Dos Eres, and they did not mention that the CIA funded the Caibales, and they completely were like, this is the Guatemalan police, no CIA involvement. That was just gross.
Yeah. So I mean, just
that's my niece. Everyone say hi to her.
No.
Okay.
She is 10 years old, I was informed.
No, 6. Comrades Isha and Janet, been forever. I changed my chosen name versus given name, Alex long name, if y'all recall.
You changed your name?
No. I hope you've all been keeping well. We have, kind of. What's the difference between chosen name and given name?
It would be the difference of me being, say, Lumpy Louise to Janet, right?
Her name is Maya. Yeah, she's a little restless, but she's what you hear in the background.
She also wanted us to change the format of the show and just be Swifties and talk about Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
I thought that you guys would enjoy that.
I'm bored. I want the paper.
Okay, yeah. What is... I can't read Arabic.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, Maya. Okay.
You don't need to call me that.
Yeah, so let's see. So today is the 106th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. Yep. This is when they stormed Winter Palace. So the by then, so in the February Revolution, which was more like a color revolution, the Tsar was abdicated and gave it to his cousin. But there was so much internal fighting that each week they went through 14 prime ministers or something really stupid like that.
Yeah.
And then, so then in July, finally came Kerensky. And one thing I did not know is that both Kerensky and Lenin are from Ulyanovsk. I went to Simbursk now. Simbursk back then now is Ulyanovsk. After my favorite part about being in Ulyanovsk was like looking at Ulyanovsk University with the name of Lenin.
Yeah.
So anyways, Kerensky's dad was also a teacher in high school for Lenin. Anyway, and he actually wrote his letter of recommendation for college. But Dick Kerensky was kind of a Zelensky.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. Anyways, he wouldn't allow. So basically, the provisional government was supposed to open up the constitutional constituent assembly so that people can create a new constitution. But the dilemma they had is that the want Russia to drop out of this First World War. And the minute they had a real constitution, everyone would have like the first thing would have been get out of the war. We don't care. We don't have any colonies. F you, Britain and U.S. We're not going to be your like dead bodies against Germany. So that was basically that. And so then Kerensky, so then the Bolsheviks like went on the streets of St. Petersburg and protested in July for a constitutional assembly. And but Kerensky's police went boom boom, and then they killed a few Bolsheviks. And then the funeral was so big, it like went like when they were burying those people, like it went like literally kilometers of people showed up to their funerals in support. And then that's when they started planning about the October Revolution to take state power, because they realized this was never going to happen. And by September, the West had already decided to get rid of Kerensky and install like a military dictator like Pilsudski onto Russia. And so, by the way, when Noam Chomsky says bullshit about the Constituent Assembly, he's wrong. He really sucks about this.
So Russia getting into World War One, was that like, were they looking, because this is under the Tsar when they did get under it, were they looking to colonize other places? Did they think
they promised, Britain and America definitely promised the Tsar some colonies. Whether or not they would have given him, that's another story.
Yeah.
And the Tsar was married to the British, his own cousin, but she was related to the British king. So he was not. He's also his own dad said he didn't have the mental capacity to be king because he's really stupid. So yeah, they did promise some colonies or some bullshit for the Tsar, but do you trust Britain and America on any promises?
No.
Not
at all. They'll use it.
Exactly. Saddam Hussein. Soon to be Zelensky. Viktor Orban used to be a darling of the West, and now they're like talking about how Hungary needs to be kicked out of the. Nancy Pelosi yesterday said Hungary needs to be kicked out of the EU, and it's like you're not. It's not your job to decide who gets
nothing to do with it. This is what I don't understand that people don't get. It's like you say that and they're like, well, the United States has nothing to do with that. Like, do you know what I mean? And when they say that, it's like, here they are commenting on it. Here they are,
Yeah, no, the whole EU is like one of the worst things. Definitely, it was involved with. It's a horrible, like one of the worst ideas. Like I bet you one of the horrible libertarian economists, Milton Friedman, probably thought of the idea.
Yeah, well, so you.
We read that article about the golden toilets, like the. Okay, so some of the creators of the EU like profited so much that they were installing golden toilets in like former villas they bought in Italy. And everyone else, like in Greece and Italy, were going hungry. Like that was basically the dream of the EU project. And I swear, Milton Friedman had something to do with it.
That's another thing to say, capitalism.
Yeah.
They basically got together for that. And it's like, if you think of like countries like that are in like BRICS, or even like how, the USSR, like that's what they, you know what I mean? Like, because it was a whole bunch of places together, like that's what they wanted for the EU to like counter that, right?
Maybe. I actually don't know much, but I do know it was like something like that. Please, we are using the mic. I'm trying we are definitely testing.
Is it me or her?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
I'm a little far away from my mic because I don't want to be so close to my camera, but am I better? Okay. I don't know. Go ahead.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Whose room though?
Who's mine or
or not.
Janet's?
I don't know. All right. So, anywho, so
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So,
I don't know how to stop the echo.
yeah, you.
Let me see if I can.
I think it was just probably more the background noise that was
Okay.
probably getting to it. No, that's worse. Now you can't hear you. Just put your mic back on. You're fine. Talk. Can't hear you.
Is this better?
Yeah, that's where you were before.
Okay. I hear an echo now.
Yeah, now it's because you can hear them talking in the background a little bit more. So.
Okay. Why do I hear? Oh, I know why I hear myself, and I know how to stop it. Okay, I stopped myself, but I do hear a background. Bzz.
I do not hear.
Uh,
All right.
okay, is this good for everyone?
I think it sounds all right.
Okay, sorry, I was not using the built-in mic. It was just I was just not.
I don't have my mic set up, but.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So
all right. So we were talking about we're getting to October.
World War One, and how. So then Lenin and the Bolsheviks. I have no idea why a lot of like Western liberals invoke Trotsky, because Trotsky was a Menshevik until it's designed to cancel noise from the side. Aw, thank you. So am I supposed to face front or stay inside?
I think it's just they're saying like the position of the microphone.
Okay. Noises, like this. Is this better?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not much, but
yeah, I have a better mic in Russia, which I'll be going back to soon.
Yeah, and that's another thing we'll have to figure out timing too if we do it.
I can do it anytime. I've decided I'll wake up anytime, day or night. I can stay up late or wake up early. It doesn't matter. Hello, Rob. Long time no see. Thanks for joining us.
All right, so back.
That's in Russia. Hola. I love to have people from Nicaragua on here.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, so then they stormed Winter Palace, but Kerensky had these Cossacks, which are horsemen guards on all the bridges in St. Petersburg, and the river Neva had frozen, and then the Bolsheviks just walked on the river. And in fact, a lot of the guards looked at this and they're like, "Oh my God, this is a miracle!" And they changed sides immediately. And then they immediately stormed Winter Palace and took state power. And Kerensky went into hiding. And he, you know what's really awful? I realized that he lived until age 90. So there are interviews of him in 1970 or 1975. Oh, really? Yeah, so unfair. Anyways, he actually hid, and he wore like a babushka dress to be smuggled out without being seen, because everyone was supporting the Bolsheviks. And then he fled first to France, and I think he went to Canada later.
Yeah.
But then the minute this is why they won't teach you about the Bolsheviks in history, because every other government looks so incompetent compared to them. The first day they had the resolution on peace, land, and bread, which means that they stopped. They said they were going to negotiate a separate peace with Germany, which means they were going to give the middle finger to the U.S. and the UK, and get out of the war. and redistribute the land, as in take the land from the landlords and give it to the serfs or quasi. Well, not that it's like it was like sharecropping, so it was not that different from slavery, but
Yeah.
serfdom officially ended in 1860, the same year the U.S. had the Emancipation Proclamation. But yeah, and so they redistributed the land immediately, and everyone had new rights. And then, so today I was reading this book about the Belarusian SSR, as in Socialist Republic. And literally, so Belarus is basically where, okay, so then World War I kind of comes to an armistice, and everyone focuses their guns on Russia because they don't want a dictatorship. They don't want a world. Actually, I found this one out really interesting, is that Wilson and Robert Lansing in their meeting said, do you know that the country is being run by the equivalent of our N-words from the plantation?
Yeah, Wilson, definitely.
That was Wilson, yes. How do you know that?
Because he was a racist POS.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's funny. I was looking at Maynard Keynes' description of Wilson, and it sounds just like Biden. Like he's like talks about how the president's like brain is not all there, and he sounds just like Biden. And I'm like, oh, nothing changes.
Nope. And probably, not as outwardly racist, but
exactly. Okay, so Wilson says that, and Lansing's like, we got to do something to stop it. And then they start so the U.S. finds this douche named Alexander Kolchak, who is like a former czarist general or something like that, and they send him lots of weapons and lots of money and to build up what they call the whites. The whites are kind of like the KKK. There's no but the population hates him. So they're literally waging it's like the Jakarta. They're not waging a war on just the Bolsheviks. They are doing the Jakarta method, which is killing everything that moves. And Britain decides to go and send weapons and money to Denikin, who is also extremely anti-Semitic and horrible. But you know what? He died in my almost hometown, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and he was buried there until the fall of the Soviet Union, when Boris Yeltsin allowed them to re-intern his body in Russia. And I'm like, F you.
So how many of the czarists made it out to U.S. and Canada? It sounds like
okay.
Nazis made it out.
Well, Kolchak did not. He was executed for his crimes. He opened up the first concentration camps. He had pogroms. He was just so brutal that he was tried and executed, and he did not make it out. But everyone else did. Denikin had the flu or something like that, and he pretended to be like a sick person and evacuated it out. Yudinovich also made it out. So everyone but Kolchak made it out. Unfortunately, and given sanctuary in the West. And a lot of these people weren't even ashamed of themselves. So in America, they called themselves the White Russians. And when we did our episode about the JFK assassination, we heard about one White Russian who was involved. Yeah, those are the czarist, literally like the KKK. Anyways, so the Bolshevik, but then U.S. Army also personally invaded in 1918 in Archangel, but it was not very well thought of, and they didn't realize it was you can't really go through the North Pole in the middle of the winter, and for logistical reasons, they kind of just got stuck there and they had to go back. Britain also tried to invade through I forgot. They also
Russia in the winter.
What? Yeah. This one tried to invade.
Russia in the winter.
Yeah. Britain also did it, but their navy was also technically unprepared to handle just like a frozen ocean. But the Czech Republic, the Czechoslovakia was able to make it to like the middle of Russia because of like they were on the side of Austria, Germany. But unfortunately for them, the Czech soldiers mutinied and said, "Oh, F this, we're going back home."
Yeah.
And so, but then there was a lot of mass mutinies right after the Bolshevik Revolution. So then the Austria-Hungarian Empire just fell apart because Austria-Hungary had a lot of soldiers not from Austria and Hungary. They had soldiers from Croatia, Bulgaria. Bulgarian soldiers mutinied and actually ended up like seizing 3 or 4 towns in Bulgaria to make a socialist republic right then. The Croatian soldiers were just like checked out, and they actually they didn't make a socialist republic, but they did make a unified government of Yugoslavia, where they created the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes, also known as Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
So Austria-Hungary, but in Hungary, the Magyars had for 1 year, inspired by the Bolsheviks, had a socialist republic, which the West hired Horthy, who was a total fascist, and the Romanian king, who was also a fascist, like to just crush them brutally, like just kill them all. And then to punish Hungary, they were afraid of the Magyar people. So then when they redrew the maps in the treaty, they left 60% of the Magyar people, as in, that's the people who are the majority ethnicity in Hungary, outside of the border of modern Hungary, because they were worried that if they were to unite, they were going to form a new socialist republic.
Yeah, there was too many of them. So they basically gerrymandered the country.
Yeah, exactly. Gerrymandered. That is a beautiful way to say it. Yep, they gerrymandered the country. So that's why you have an ethnic Hungarian population that's in danger in Ukraine right now. In Poland, a small part. In Serbia was there? No. In Slovakia, definitely. There and actually Orban. So in Slovakia, they got rid of their NATO puppet. The opposition candidate literally got his PhD, and his dissertation was like how to do a better color revolution. I'm not joking.
Really?
Yeah. I'll show you I'll send you the tweet and you can share it. Yeah, literally how to do a better I think I can share it now because I am not on a real camera. Okay, found it. Okay. I figured out how to share tweets now. So you go to share screen.
And make sure you're just on the Twitter. And none of your messages are up.
Oh, okay. Good point. Okay.
Make sure that sidebar is down because sometimes messages show up there.
Okay. So this is his book contribution, From Democracy Assistance to Importing Transition Experience. Okay, but it's worse. His PhD thesis, Michael Semeska, Making Revolutionary Waves, Structural and Variable Diffusion of Mobilization in Techniques in Colored Revolutions.
Oh,
that's literally his PhD, how to make a better color revolution. So
we call it Twitter. I refuse to bow down to Elon Musk.
I'm never calling it X. No. X sounds like ecstasy or something. But anyways, so the main candidate who won, Robert Fico, said war always comes from the West and peace and freedom always comes from the East. And he actually did really well, and yeah, but the Orban did send the Hungarian population in Slovakia. Orban did send somebody to tell them how to like agitate their votes as ethnic Hungarians. So, but yeah, so I guess you can say Hungary interfered in Slovakia's elections, but
Everyone interferes in everyone's election.
yeah, and ultimately I don't care. So that's why they're mad at Hungary, because Viktor Orban for the past year has or 2 years has actually been thumbing his nose at NATO and the EU. And I don't know what made him change. Well, I think what made him change was the Soros University. That was the first time he's like, oh, regime change university. Nope. You guys are going to have, like he said, the university has to be like every degree has to be offered to American students somewhere in America, in an accredited university in America. Yeah. And that means regime change U is down. And Soros lost like $200 million. But then China said, oh, we can offer you guys that. We can offer every program is going to be from this university somewhere in China.
Yeah.
And he's like, welcome. And so that was the first time the relations between US and him soured, but then it's been going downhill. And that's why Nancy Pelosi's like, Hungary can't be in the EU again.
Well, I mean, the whole, I feel like I've been seeing ever since, Ukraine, the last couple of years, I've been seeing people turn away from the U.S. a little bit more. Maybe not so much the leaders, but...
Oh, the leaders, a lot of leaders have.
Yeah. Or maybe, some of it was Russiagate, too, because you had... what was the one in the Bahamas or Bermuda? The leader there, the president there was saying, I can be friends with Russia and friends with the U.S. You know what I mean? She was saying that 2 years ago. And so I think even the Russiagate just got out of hand. I think.
Oh yeah, well, but it did have a danger. It did actually inspire a lot of hate crimes against ethnic Russians in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, to the point where Latvia actually. Okay, so there are about 25% of Latvia is stateless, as in they don't have a country, they don't have a citizenship. It's worse than being undocumented. Being stateless is you can't you can't go in. You're stuck. There's nothing to do.
You can't. Oh, I was watching some guy on TikTok, and it wasn't Latvia. It was somewhere else. And he himself was born in Palestine. He couldn't get a passport. But his parents were from somewhere like Latvia or something like that. Latvia was somewhere else it's stateless, so it doesn't have passports. So he was trying to enter Germany on his Palestinian, whatever the document they give him, not a real actual passport. So that he was having a hard time getting into Germany because of that.
Oh yeah,
you can't move to other. You can't
and in Latvia, if you're not a citizen, you're not eligible for anything, not even schooling. You're just screwed.
Yeah.
So a lot of and a lot of the stateless people are ethnically Russian. And it's a very Nazi state. They glorify the Holocaust. So there are a lot of hate crimes. A lot of random people just killing random Russians, ethnic Russians who've never set foot in Russia, thanks to Russiagate.
Yeah.
So the only thing it inspired is in some fascist countries, in the Baltics, a lot of hate crimes.
Yeah.
But there was no other real effect because everyone was rolling their eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I think on the other end that it turns some people against the U.S. because of. It was just so ridiculous. It got so ridiculous.
I know.
Ridiculous.
Exactly. Even the conduct they accused Russia of, using Facebook, like, and it was such
was
little money. You made
Like,
that. It's
couple
like
$1 million. We had the graphic with the. It was just a couple of $1 million, and against what, $1 billion that Hillary was running.
yeah, she literally set fire to $1 billion on her useless campaign. So yeah, Russiagate was so ridiculous. Like I couldn't take it
And
seriously.
living through the Cold War, like me being old enough to remember, like I was 19 when the Berlin Wall came down, right? So the Cold War was,
Yeah.
well in my childhood, and so it seemed even more ridiculous for me because it was like,
Yeah.
like you got what you wanted. You didn't want, the Soviet Union anymore. You now have Russia and all these other states, but you're going to sit there and still try to blame Russia. Like you still have to make
Up a villain.
Yeah.
And well, yeah, they're basically they thought they were going to have a Yeltsin forever, and I don't know what Putin said, but he said something to get Yeltsin to resign on New Year's Eve of 1999.
Yeah.
He doesn't follow the West, and like in the beginning he tried to be nice and conciliatory, but he's been burnt so many times that now he's just like he went Joker mode. He actually said the people who lead the West are Satan. Like he wasn't like that. Like,
yeah. It's everything. Even they are no longer the Soviet Union, and they still get hit with this stupid Cold War shit. So it's like, they still get caught like, it's a communist state. We need to like anti-communist. We need to go after them, and it's like, no, you guys like. You got what you wanted, and you still and now you're upset because you don't have that enemy that you had all the time that you could drum up everyone.
But then when Putin stopped listening to Putin was not a sober Yeltsin. The first thing he did was end the war in Chechnya. He like literally the next day he said he went to Chechnya, figured out a peace deal, ended the war, and came back. And so that's when like the Clintons were like, you'll see Hillary writing in her book that how she knew Putin was evil because he ended the war in Chechnya.
No.
Oh my God. You know about how Hillary wouldn't sleep with Bill until he bombed Serbia?
No.
Okay. Alexander Cockburn, is that his name? Or Cockburn?
Cockburn, probably Cockburn.
I don't know. Alexander. Okay, he was a good, very, very, very good journalist. At the top level before he died. Anyways, in his book, he wrote that after the Monica Lewinsky scandal, Hillary wouldn't like sleep with Bill Clinton, but after he bombed Serbia, she got really horny again, and they started sleeping together again.
It's just crazy.
I can show you that excerpt. Just 1 minute. Let me see if I can find that.
Yeah, there was that other tweet you wanted to talk about too.
No, which one? I found it. Okay, so let me. It is Cockburn.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's.
Cockburn. I don't know.
I don't know how to pronounce it. He was a very like he's still like in the top. Like he did not fall for U.S. propaganda. He was one of the best journalists. Who's the guy who exposed My Lai?
That wasn't Hirsch, was it?
Seymour Hirsch, yeah. He's at that level. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would say.
Okay, it's pronounced Coburn. No, it does not look like it's pronounced Coburn. It looks like it's pronounced Cockburn. I don't know.
You never know.
You never know. Okay. A biography of Hillary Kirk written by Gail Sheehy and published in the late 1999 stated that Miss Clinton had refused to talk to President for 8 months after the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke. She resumed talking to her husband only when she phoned him and ordered him in the strongest terms to begin bombing Serbia. The president began bombing within 24 hours. Alexander Coburn observed in the Los Angeles Times.
Yep. Yeah, no, I can see that happening. I mean, she's very.
I know she's like war horny.
She's always been, and that was one of the things in 2016. I was like, she is like, we would have been where we're at with Biden a lot sooner if she was.
Oh yeah, but my theory is that the Democrats actually don't care about Russia and Ukraine. They're crazy, and they still think he interfered with the elections, and that's why they're like supporting these awful Nazi child molesters in Ukraine.
Yeah,
that's my theory. Putin didn't. He was the okay. He did something with the embassy in Berlin when Berlin was the DDR. That's why it took him so long to. No, they're not irrational actors. That's the thing. The West acts in its best interest. You can't appease them. You just have to show them the middle finger and use your nukes. Yeah, he was trying to not basically go to war. He was hoping that the West would understand, would be scared enough of destroying mankind or civilization to not push NATO forward. Like he was kind of hoping to negotiate that, but then he realized, nope, they don't care. So he, yeah, yeah. So
was that the only war that was happening in Russia at the time?
Yeah, the Chechnya War. Yeah, that was the first war. But that was also created by the West. And the guy who's the president, what am I? Ramzan Kadyrov.
Yeah.
His dad was mysteriously assassinated by a bomb, like that was built into a stadium that he was going to go inaugurate.
I think I remember that. Was it in the 90s? Was it?
It was in the early 2000s, like right after he did the peace deal. Everyone knows who assassinated him. The CIA, of course. So that was like the CIA often punishes people who do the right thing for their people, like Anwar Sadat. They killed in Korea. They killed some right winger too, like because he went to the border and started to negotiate with Kim Il Sung. So yeah, they often do that. But yeah, and then Russia hadn't been so the Georgian. I wouldn't say Georgian thing was actually a war, because it took like 7 days.
Yeah.
So they did a color revolution and put this jackass in. And he started like starving out some of the provinces, like Askabia and a few of them. And basically those people decided to kind of do what Donetsk did. And the Georgian military tried to do what the Ukrainian military was doing, but back then the Russian military went 7 days and pushed the Georgian military back, and they let Askabia and Ossetia like do whatever they want. And so, I don't know if that it annoyed NATO, but I don't know if it's called a war because it was 7 days long. It didn't take much.
Yeah.
It literally would happen like during the Olympics, so no one covered it.
Yeah. When was that?
Beijing, 2008, Beijing Olympics.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it was. I just barely remember. Just barely. You mentioned it, and I know that it happened, but I couldn't tell you where I was when it was happening.
Well, it's because everyone was so distracted by like all the sports in the Olympics that literally the Western press didn't realize they could use it. But anyways, that guy, the color revolution president, was literally kicked out of Georgia, and he went to Ukraine. And after Maidan, they made him the governor of Odessa.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah. It's really stupid. So that was the next war, I guess. But then this is the thing. If Putin knew, he would have stopped Maidan from happening,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like if Russians were involved, they would not have. They would have just kept Yanukovych and stopped Maidan from
Oh, yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. So it was Crimea was actually, I've shown this video thousands of times, where it was literally the Ukrainian military didn't know what's going on. They just heard these psychos are killing, having Nazi flags and killing everyone. So the Ukrainian military in Crimea closed its borders because they didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, they didn't know. Yeah.
And then Crimea declared independence on its
when
own.
they figured out. Well, you have a busload of people just burnt to death.
Yeah. Burnt. 3 busloads of people were just burnt to death. They and then a week after the referendum held in Crimea, then Russia was like, okay, we're going to integrate whatever Ukrainian army there is with our army. So that's when, but it's not an annexation because it was done with the consent of the Crimean people. What?
The people wanted it. So
yeah,
when the people are requesting something, if everyone in, I'm going to say Texas, but that would be a bad thing.
No, that would be horrible. No, Mexico doesn't. If everyone in Minnesota wanted to be part of Canada,
yeah, they should.
And
be
Canada says, sure.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. And ultimately, in America, they always say if like a referendum has like 90% vote, it must be rigged. But if your choice is psycho-Nazis and not psycho-Nazis.
Well, see, it would seem that way in America because they have us so propagandized. We would, like 50% of us would vote.
But you think 50% of America would vote for psycho-Nazis in power?
Well, I mean, you can look at like the numbers on who supports Ukraine and who doesn't support Ukraine, and it's like,
a lot of them don't know that they're psycho-Nazis.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. We're so propagandized. We don't know how to see it. Like we wouldn't know it. Like the same thing with Israel. Like I know I was raised Catholic, a white Irish Catholic, right? In the United States. And it was almost like you couldn't even talk about like Israel and stuff like that, because the second that you try to talk on that, when I was younger trying to learn on it, like I'm talking older teenager and stuff like that, like if you're questioning it, you're anti-Semitic. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, but then
it shut a lot of people up. That shuts people up. They don't want to go look into it because they're like, because of what they feel for like what happened in Germany.
Oh no, that's not it. A lot of people, immigrants in the 1950s in America, if you ask them what they did, they didn't want to open those closet skeletons and face the consequences.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so the U.S. basically had a fascist only policy, not a communist ban, because most of the countries in the East didn't have a communist government. They had a united front, popular front policy. That means everyone who's not a communist bands together and kicks out the fascists. Sorry, everyone who's not a fascist bands together and kicks out the fascists from power.
But
so
they felt like all those were like, they always said that communists were behind them. So they used the anti-communists, like their whole agenda was anti-communist.
Communists were very popular because, for example, Madeleine Albright's dad was a politician in Czechoslovakia. You know what he did? He bribed the Gestapo and went to London and got to sip tea. The communists in Czechoslovakia, on the other hand, they were like, they went and assassinated Himmler's like number one guy. They went and like they just kind of went in and they saw him like, and he was driving without a roof. They just went boom, boom, boom. So they were doing the sabotage assassinations. They were there protecting the smuggling out the Jews, hiding them. They were half of them were Jews, the Jewish partisans. And so yes, after the war, if you were like with the people like killing Nazis, fighting, everyone's going to love you. So the communist parties in a lot of these countries were naturally popular because of their actions during the war. Like the liberal parties fled to London, and the communist parties were right there, had their hands, even MacGyver, even when they didn't have guns, they would fight. And that's what made them so popular.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it didn't. What I'm saying is that it didn't matter if the People's Liberation Fronts were communists. They were deemed communists. So I think because they demonized communism in the United States, they had to say that all these countries were going to fall to the communists if they didn't stop it.
well, yeah, and that's what they don't realize is that all these like they did not realize that these countries didn't have like you know how the West had its puppets like Pinochet. Moscow did not have these puppets because these countries didn't work that way. They were actually the people that rose up. So even today, like the CIA admits, like now that we know Moscow actually had very little to do with most of the countries in the Eastern Bloc.
Yeah,
it's like duh. Yeah, but it's the projection. The same thing happened with it's kind of funny with Korea. If you've noticed, in the free half of Korea, you have 100% Korean soldiers fighting, willing to die, willing to give up. In the non-free half, you need to have American soldiers because Koreans are not willing to fight and die for like getting.
The Koreans wanted their own, but we couldn't let them have what they wanted.
So this is the same thing in every kind of Cold War situation. Is you realize like in Vietnam, you had Vietnamese soldiers who was willing to fight and die for Vietnam, but no one was willing to fight and die for some heroin addict that the U.S. installed. So that's why you needed American soldiers. So the Cold War, you always had the locals versus the U.S., and somehow they managed to spin it as pro-Russia when Russia was not there. Oh, Russia did give Vietnam weapons, but that's all they did. Like,
yeah, but I mean, it was the superpower.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the United States, this big superpower that like. It even by the 60s, it was still like a huge military at that point, and a huge superpower at that point. Not quite as big as it is now, but it was big enough. And you had this big bully picking on this
illiterate peasants, basically. In Vietnam, it was peasants wearing flip flops. So, like, the U.S. has never actually fought a war with equals. I mean.
No.
Iraq too, like after they destroyed the military with sanctions, whatever. Again, you got some random Afghanistan, definitely some like starved mountain.
I think Iraq, like I think with that and how we handled that, and we bombed a bunch of places and we killed so many people. I think that's another reason why a lot of Americans can't understand like what's going on in Gaza or Palestine.
The same thing.
Yeah. Like
essentially,
it's just that like they're doing what we did. It's a parallel. So then that's why Israel's probably like, well, why are people getting so upset? Like the United States did it, or like, do you know what I mean? Like that.
Well, Israel doesn't have the same colonial capacity. Like Israel's like a little puppet. It itself is like a little Western puppet. So no one's going to give it. No one's afraid of it. So they're not going to give them the same leeway as they did Washington.
Yeah.
But even Washington, back then a lot of countries didn't feel as secure. China was a little quiet because China was trying to make sure that they had all the technology capabilities they needed before they went open in public. Now, if the Iraq War were to happen now, China and Russia would definitely step in. Back then, they both were kind of unsure. They were not as strong. But now it's a completely different story.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely over the last like decade.
Yeah, definitely after the start of the Brick Belt and Road Initiative, and of course, Obama tried his stupid TPP in order to counter the Belt and that failed.
Yeah.
How did it fail though? Like, that part I don't get.
How did the TPP fail?
It's like, was he counting on Hillary to win and make it happen, or?
I think they definitely. I mean, they really thought they had, like, Hillary bought the DNC, and they really thought, they used the Pied Piper. They really thought they had it in the bag. They really did. And I think even, I don't know, like, even if Jeb got in,
Daryl
even kind of helped the TPP. I don't know. Like, I think he like, even so, there was more moderate Republicans that might not have killed it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Trump was, that actually won, that PPP speech in the debates actually won Trump the 3 states. She said NAFTA, something about NAFTA, and then he's like, NAFTA was the worst thing that ever happened, the worst deal. And because NAFTA did devastate entire populations, impoverish, like it turned like entire populations into like opiate addicts, unemployed opiate addicts, like in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, West Virginia, like a lot of the manufacturing states. NAFTA absolutely did that.
Yeah.
So when he did that, that was that moment where it was like a few weeks. I knew he's gonna win those states because that was enough.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like the opiate use, heroin use, was rising up because of that, of them not having jobs, of and then the Sacklers made tons of money. Like
it's so evil. The Sacklers, like I don't know how.
The opiate stuff was
the Oxycontin commercial. They are like, I can't. It's just unfathomable evil. Like, I would say they are definitely at IG Farben levels of evil.
Oh yeah, no, they definitely are, and they get away with it. They totally get away with it. Like, they get slaps on the wrist, and that's that, and they're fine. Like they already screwed up a whole generation on Valium and made all their money off of that, and then they go and they do the opiates. And I'm a chronically ill person, and I was on opiates. I did not like them. I did not like being on them. And I know people that they actually do help. And this is where the evil is even worse, is that they were helping chronically ill people. And now it's so much harder for those people that it was helping, because you know what? If you're chronically ill and you're progressively chronically ill, I don't care if you want to like take pills or drink or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you're dealing with a lot of stuff.
Exactly.
And if your doctor is saying, okay, we're okay with this, and I know that there's bad doctors out there that will just prescribe whatever.
But they were like selling some sort of super addictive mixture. Yeah. Like, they had created a special mixture that was super addictive, and telling doctors, oh yeah, if somebody it can cure headaches and they won't be addictive, and they were just lying straight up.
You go get your tooth pulled and you'd have a little pain for 3 days, and yeah, the opiates are nice for those 3 days. You didn't need to get 2 weeks worth of opiates.
Exactly.
Like, you didn't need that. And you're not really going to get addicted probably within 3 days. So if they only gave you 3 days worth, then, that.
Yeah, but if they gave you 3 days worth of the old opiates as opposed to the new Sackler formula, I forgot the name of it. That is especially designed to be addictive. So it's very evil.
Yeah. And it's the same thing what they did that we were going to talk, you brought up the COINTELPRO, like, oh, maybe we do a show on that one time, but it's exactly like one of the things that they did in that was flood the streets with heroin, like all in that time. And, so all these things were working together. And so, and they flooded,
Well, the really interesting thing is that if you look at the poppy seed exports in Afghanistan, when the Taliban were removed and the rapey warlords were put in power, the production just went up, and there was no food. but then when the Taliban came back within 1 year, boom, all of it was cut off. And you're like, so you can actually stop the opium production if you really want to. And under U.S. occupation, the U.S. didn't want that production stopped.
No, they didn't. They make money off it.
Yeah, it's like amazing, like how quickly, yeah. No, the U.S. communists are not supposed to go with anyone. You are supposed to build a popularish front, and then. But yeah, you're right. But historically, they were definitely a whites-only workers' history. Yep, you're absolutely right. But Donald Trump, that is also ironically true. Under Barack Obama, Black wealth was down by 64%. Like the wealth, like there was like the average wealth before Obama was like maybe $2,000. After Obama, it was like negative $64. So his policies definitely devastated Black people, or lack of policies, or centrism, or whatever he did. The Wall Street, the homeowners bailouts, like he didn't give homeowners bailouts, but Wall Street bailouts and whatever, it wiped out a lot of. You're absolutely right. Unfortunately, the problem is that for the Black community, whenever you get somebody like Fred Hampton or Huey Newton, who's actually going to be a revolutionary leader, who gets offed. And then what you're left with is whatever is.
Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries.
Hakeem Jeffries, yes. I don't think so, but I'll ask. I'll call and ask tomorrow.
U.S. communists don't have a deal with the Democrats.
I don't.
I think like the DS. I don't know if like the DSA was created under the Democrats.
But they're not. The DSA just lost a lot of people because so the DSA is like let's have no platform and let anyone do anything and all this people shit. Yeah. And then they realized that they didn't have a unified platform again. Like they don't have a unified platform. Like each local thing like is to do whatever. It's like really stupid. And then they lost a big part of its caucus because of the split in the Israel-Palestine issue.
Yeah.
But the DSA is like, it's kind of like a way. Okay, there are some local communities that do really good work for local people, like help bring food, help. There was one local community that put in like headlights because the cops were stopping a lot of people for broken headlights. So they put in free headlights. So yes, I will. No, they are not a subsidiary of the Dems. The CPUSA was actually started by the Soviet Union. Yeah. And they were given this really big building on 29th Street in Manhattan by the Soviet Union. And they basically rent out floors 1 through 7 in Manhattan, and that's how they make all their money. And so they're not related to the Democrats. The problem is the leaders right now are kind of old and they're still scared. So they survived the Cold War as best as they could. Thank God. They were legalized, they survived, but they had to withdraw and just do whatever they can. So the CPUSA has a lot of people saying a lot of people are writing a lot of stupid articles for the People, Workers, whatever their magazine. What's their magazine called? People's World. But they are the legit Communist Party, in my opinion. But yeah, you do. And a lot of them are very timid right now, especially after the fall of the Soviet Union. They got incredibly scared, incredibly timid. And they are rudderless.
Yeah, but wasn't Ava Shakur's part of the Communist Party?
Yes, absolutely. Tupac Shakur was in the CPUSA.
Like their whole family was.
And there's. It doesn't even matter how you vote. Don't even think about it. Like literally, like I wouldn't even worry about this BS. This is like totally irrelevant. Don't think about it. Don't even care. Treat it as background music.
Like I vote third party just because if I have the time, I'll go down and vote.
You are much better off reading Lenin than worrying about this nonsense. This is like a total distraction. Who cares? I don't care how you vote. Vote whatever you want. If you vote, I don't care. Because in the imperial court, it really does not matter if the policy doesn't change. So there needs to be
especially in the United States, because you're getting the same. You're getting
I literally don't.
Like people are like, oh, but like you're gonna get Trump or don't for Biden, and I'm like,
I don't. Yeah,
they're worse right now under Biden than they were.
I don't really care. I'm never gonna tell you. So I feel like leftists should not even waste an ounce of energy talking about. Well, you can troll them if it entertains you, but anything else, don't waste energy.
Yes, definitely troll liberals. It's
But don't waste energy into their useless. So they always want to draw you into debating something totally useless that has no effect on anyone, and this is one of them. So so basically, all the policy is being controlled by capitalists, and foreign policy is not going to change. So somebody, in order to get change in America, the material conditions for the majority of the people have to drastically reduce to like 1920s Germany level, basically. And then maybe you will get some interest in revolutionary change.
Rob, I don't think you're supposed to be stealing the pens from
you can steal pens from polling places. I think it's cool.
I'm only kidding. I don't care.
Yeah, you can do whatever.
Steal the toilet paper too.
Well, there is no left-wing movements because they were all successfully purged during the Cold War. There is a lead bullet ceiling to real politics. Exactly.
I'm thoroughly Gen X, and we basically dropped a ball.
No, you guys didn't drop the ball. It wasn't. I blame boomers all over the world.
I understand that, but because you had the counter. But we didn't pick it back up, and we should have. I think like through Reagan, there should have been a lot more.
Were you guys even old enough to to stop Reagan?
Because I was born 1970.
Oh, okay. No, you couldn't. You could have definitely stopped Bush.
From 1966, I think, is when Gen X starts.
Okay. So yeah, Bush, yes. Reagan, no. Clinton was disgusting. Like there was no reason. Like you guys could have done more.
I think that
but I still blame the boomers. You know why? A lot of them were raised by like alcoholic parents, traumatized by World War II, and so the boomers like are the first generation to be like babysat by the TV, and then they ended up like turning out to be really, really selfish, and stupid. For example, how like in the Eastern Bloc, they didn't understand that capitalism for Romania meant you're going to go back to your levels of like back to the farmland. Like it's going to look like capitalism will not turn Romania into America, but it will turn Romania back to like Ethiopia levels of poverty.
Capitalism is just an extension of feudalism. I mean, it was just going to
So a lot of
that, except for
a lot of people like okay. So if the boomers in the Eastern Bloc were willing to fight another world war, they should have, but they were too stupid. They didn't understand that their governments were telling, once the wall fell, they were like, oh, our governments were telling the truth.
Oh, wait. So you're in Russia. What's the feeling in Russia on the generations? Do they feel like...
No, they don't have just a generational war, but they do. Everyone takes their time. If you ever ask everyone, regardless of age, takes their time to mention how nice the Soviet Union was and how Yeltsin is rotting in hell, regardless of who it is. So it's funny. So they have a day on June 6th that they've changed to Russia Day. And that day, like all you get is people complaining about how Yeltsin is like the devil and he deserves to be in hell and how the Soviet Union was better. And that's all they do on
But
Measure Day.
it's like historically, like when was the wall? The wall wasn't June 6th, right? It was
No, the wall was on this anniversary of Kristallnacht. And as Matt's article
oh yeah.
really funnily wrote, hold on.
Rob saying capitalism is just slavery with more steps, which
Yeah. I love quoting Matt on how he explained the day the wall fell,
just don't quote that on the tweet that he sent out.
yeah. Hold on. This is really funny. Where did he write this?
The rampart of civilization against the West.
Yeah, that's actually okay. It was known on the other side of the wall as the Wall of Shame, a term coined by U.S. ventriloquist dummy Willy Brandt. That naturally was not in reference to what the world should have felt for the continuation of fascism on the western side of the wall, but instead a comment on the wall's restriction on the freedom of Nazis to go be with other Nazis and live under a government filled with Nazis in a society designed for Nazis. That was one. No. Oh, the other one. Every November night. See, it's on the same night as Kristallnacht. Okay. An alternatively equally accurate way of saying this is every November 9th, the imperialist neoliberal hellscape that is Germany celebrates the anniversary of Kristallnacht by broadcasting the footage of the savage breaking of the anti-fascist protection rampart like pornography.
That does have a way with words.
Yeah, but that is true. Yeah, it was on Kristallnacht, and that was not on purpose. It was done on. No one in East Germany wanted this wall coming down. In fact, after the wall, you'll see like a lot of graffiti. They say, "Put the wall back in, bring back the wall." So but the fact that the West Germany had more Nazis than Nazi Germany, like in high level staff, I don't think it was an accident that the wall came down on Kristallnacht.
Yeah.
It seems
Cannabinated is saying, but boomers were more brainwashed, but I'm not sure on that. I want to say elder Gen X has probably had even more of the brainwashing, but I think that boomers were just comfortable.
Yeah, boomers were way too comfortable. So on the other side of the wall, their grandparents were like illiterate slaves, so their grandparents understood the difference between understood the difference between capitalism. But it seems like their parents gave them too much comforts because they used to be illiterate slaves, and now they can give them like TVs. Like I feel like they were too spoiled.
Yeah, I mean, it was the doing better for and it was supposed to be like every generation's doing better.
Yeah. But on the other side, like in Russia, for example, their grandparents did not tell them about all the times they had to fight Nazi, walking 6 miles barefoot in the snow and with nothing but. They really that's the thing. The Russian grandpa really walked 6 miles barefoot in the snow while killing Nazis in order to go to school. So they didn't tell them. They wanted to protect them. So they didn't realize the horrors of capitalism because the greatest generation in the East or in Bloc wanted to protect their children and from all the evil they witnessed, and they shouldn't have. They should have just traumatized them from age 2 about how evil the world was when capitalism was here, and that's the biggest mistake, I think.
Oh, so they didn't educate the Eastern Bloc on
so these parents went through hell and back. They were, before the World War, they were like illiterate peasants. During the war, it was like they survived hell, like worse than hell. Anything. So, but then they became prosperous after the war, and all the babies born, they were two. Like I've interviewed quite a few boomers, and I see a lot of them saying like, I've actually had to go through looking at the red article, army archives to say what their dads and grandparents did in the war. And like, I was like, did you know that your grandpa escaped a concentration twice escaped concentration camps? And then I had to, because their grandpa didn't bother doing that because
They
he
didn't
wanted to
want,
protect, he didn't want to protect the innocent children. He wanted to let them see the beautiful world as it is, and he didn't know.
Yeah.
The greatest generation should have traumatized these kids from age 2 about all the horrors of the Nazis. They should have been talking. Did you know about the Ustazis who had these they had these like Wolverine like claws, and then they would like, they should have just like nonstop. That should have been what the boomer parents should have done.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, for sure. We should have.
No, but no, because you guys were not
there. I know what you're saying. Like even it was even worse. Like they were kept from. They should have known the truth because of what their parents went through. We might not even have parents that went through that, and
you were not told that. But whatever, like you guys were not, I guess, that important to the world. No offense, but
no, I know.
like,
I mean, we were Gen X.
yeah.
We were now, like both parents had to work now, so we were the latchkey kids. We were out.
Well, in the Eastern Bloc, both parents didn't have to work, but actually, one parent usually had died in the war, so the remaining parent had to work because there weren't both parents in so many cases.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but like I said,
I'm older Gen X.
The older Gen
yeah,
the older Gen X are the worst of both. So a lot of times, and then you'll see, like the U.S. was so good at doing those color revolutions that they would come and destroy everything, so that you couldn't do a communist revolution. Like they would just come and they just zoomed in and privatized everything, and just it was happened so fast. Like there's nothing you can do.
Well, the propaganda that they would use too, in saying like, pinning people against. I mean,
yeah,
against each other, and then saying like, oh well, that's a fascist that you're working with over there. Like they still do that.
I mean that is a fascist. The U.S. were definitely working. Like,
I mean, like if the communists were doing something, they'd be like, they would demonize like someone that they were working with, or they were, definitely demonize the leaders. Like they.
Oh, the leaders were. Yes. What they did. Well, no. Like for example, Ceausescu. Okay, so the Romanian fascists like hung children from iron hooks. So Ceausescu was 100% right to crack down on all of them. Today, he is considered the best president Romania ever had. Every December 25th, the anniversary of his death, they put thousands and thousands of roses on his grave. And the guy who followed him is in jail for war crimes.
But he's not in the state looking like he could just wake up, though.
What?
He's not laying in state looking like he just wake up at any moment, right?
No, he was shot in the head.
Yeah.
There's a video of that. It was like the worst thing you can ever see. And it was like, it was, okay. So what happened is that he was a little too bold. That year, he went against the IMF and he was killed just.
What year was this?
1988 or 89. And because of that, like Gaddafi, exactly, he was killed exactly in the same way as Gaddafi was, for the same reason.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So he went again. He paid off all the loans of the IMF that year, and he thought he was gonna go. He made a speech about how Romania is gonna go a new path without the IMF.
Yeah.
And then they got this, like they did so if you watch Checkmate, Anatomy of a Revolution, it's a German film that talks about how the West, there was like no one who wanted anything in Romania changed. They wanted to continue with his path. And then there was all these psyops to the point where the police and the military both thought they were shooting at terrorists, and they were accidentally shooting at each other. And then that day, where the quote unquote protests happened, 64,000 people were it was not, the protest was just to make sure that the media didn't cover the 64,000 people that they killed. It was very bloody. And then they got Ceausescu, and they just killed him like Gaddafi. And it was, but the U.S. was like explaining it like freedom, and no one wanted that bloody freedom.
Democracy.
Yeah. Yeah. Then the next year, the puppet gets like IMF loans when they didn't even need it, and all exactly because of Ceausescu. But the next year, the puppet just gets, and everything turns to hell. But the thing is that, like I said, if the Red Army, when the Red Army was filled with illiterate peasants, there were many, many, many worse attempts at coups, and they stopped all of them.
Yeah.
But the boomers were not radicalized enough to be the same Red Army, if that makes sense.
Yes. No, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the conditions that made them want.
But they didn't have enough fear of how things could be worse. They didn't have that imagination of how things were 30 years ago.
Yeah. This was like amazing to me. All right, like growing up in Massachusetts. I'm 21 years, like 2021. I move in with a woman who grew up in Lebanon. And she was describing like the bombings and stuff that, would happen there. And I mean, I believe
where were the bombings happening?
In Lebanon.
Oh yeah, that was in the 80s. That was the Civil War.
Yeah. So
I mean, if you can call it a civil war, because there was a lot of dirty hands from the usual people.
Oh yeah. It was pretty nasty. But she would like say this, and I would just be like. And it was like she would tell me these stories. And finally, I'm the same age as her, and I'm like sitting there. I'm like, I don't even know what I don't know, because I didn't have that. Like I didn't have this war around me that most people in the United States, unless they fought, like joined the army and stuff like that, they haven't seen war. So they don't freaking know how just nasty it is.
Oh yeah, I was in Bakhmut, so I can say near Bakhmut actually. There's no buildings have survived. Like nothing's there.
Yeah. Is that the first time you were like in a war torn or?
Well, Lugansk, I was in a war torn zone.
Okay.
Okay, second time. But yeah, there's nothing there. It's pretty horrible. And they just don't understand. Like, imagine being scared that any moment your family can just like boom, there's a bomb.
So one of her stories was she was the oldest out of 5, and then so she was 21. So her youngest sister at the time was only 13. But when they were over there, her sister was like 5 or 6 years old, and a bomb went through their house, and she was stuck on one side of the house, and they couldn't get to her. And so it was like the youngest one, and they were all like, the house was just destroyed, and they couldn't get over to her, and she's freaking out and stuff. And they tell me the story, and it's just like, I can't even imagine if I saw that at 6 years old, a bomb in the house.
Well, I mean, today I saw this really horrible thing where the 6-year-old says, I had to carry the body of like a headless man for 3 floors. And
the people don't understand. There's one thing on that people have to understand, that in like the Muslim religion, they have to
bury them immediately,
as full as possible.
Yeah, as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so like that is why a man would carry his child in bags. You know what I mean? Like that is, and that's how how bad it is. Like, you're not even giving these people a chance to like bury people.
Well, another thing is there was this girl who was crying. Another video I saw was there's this girl who was crying because the school was shutting down, and the teacher, he said, "Don't worry, sweetheart. You'll be back in January. This is just temporary. You'll be in the class. This is not the last class you'll ever have." Unfortunately, it was the last class, and the teacher was crying because he was like, I made a
promise.
Yeah, that this one, I know. He said, "I'll be back next year,
Yeah,
and I'll be back with all of you." But he didn't count on the fact that they may not be able to come back to class because they're dead.
I mean, it's
yeah.
I can't even like any of that, like anything that happens like that. Like, how does someone like look at what was happening in Donetsk and in eastern Ukraine? Like, how can you look at
the woman I lived with?
People dying, like
the woman I lived with in Donetsk, her daughter was just on the street. There's a video of it, and then boom, she was dead. They didn't even have a body to bury. And she's like, "How am I gonna?" She cried every day, and it was like she became really attached to me because she was not used to being alone and truly alone in this world, and she is now. And so I felt so sad for her. Because she has no one. And she's in her 70s and no one and nothing, and it was just wiped out in one boom. So they don't tell you. Okay. So in Israeli propaganda, they dehumanize Palestinians. Gideon Levy, who's a good journalist, he talks about. He's a very excellent. He's been there. He lives in Israel. He talks about all the ways Israeli propaganda is just disgusting. Dehumanization, and that's the only way you can have these people actually cope with or like get these people to literally wrestle, like kick people out of their homes and steal it, like settlers in the West Bank literally do that. They just take a gun and drive people out of their homes at gunpoint.
Yeah, and that I was watching one man just saying to the they had a video going on a few weeks ago where he's just saying the Palestinian woman's like, "This is my home," and he's like, "Nope, it's mine now." And she's like, "How do you feel about stealing someone's home?" And he's like, "If I didn't do it, someone else would take it."
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, "I didn't do it by gun; it was empty when I came." Like, so he felt like he was just, he wasn't a bad person for taking the house.
Yeah. And then the one most heartbreaking is where you see this like young Jewish couple from Brooklyn taking the house of this old man in a wheelchair in Palestine, and there's nothing they can do. They just, and it's like, and you're from Brooklyn. What the hell are you doing there? Just go live.
My mom and dad went there. My father's always just like, "It's not a nice place. I wouldn't want to live there." He's like, "I don't understand why." Like, he's like, "I don't understand." But like, okay, Dad, do you understand why the Palestinians fight for it? Because it was their home. You know what I mean? Like, the settlers that are coming in, like, why are they doing it? The Palestinians, it was their home, and they were, they'd move around. They start settling down in these areas, and they get kicked out.
Because the Zion, half of it is because people who are Zionists really believe something to do with the Bible. God gave them, or the Torah, God gave them some right. But you can go there for healthcare and live in Tel Aviv and not steal a house from Palestinians.
The Torah Jews will tell you that in the Torah it says like what they're doing in Israel is wrong.
There's
they're not supposed to have a homeland until
whatever
the Messiah comes back. Or comes, or the Messiah hasn't come yet for them.
So, yeah, and in fact,
there
Richie
should-
Torres actually accused this, like, there was a group of rabbis protesting Richie Torres in front of his office, and he accused them of like being anti-Semitic.
Yep.
And it's like it's like, look, these are rabbis. No, most Jews are not Zionist, and most Zionists are actually not Jews either,
They're
because the biggest Zionist
fundamentalists.
organization in America is this like psychotic Christians for Israel. They give so much money, and they want they're like Mike Pompeo belongs to that weird. So they want some. Okay, they need is Babylon and Israel and somebody else fighting a war in order for Jesus to come and
it's something to do with the apocalypse.
Yeah, apocalypse. So these people want to speed up the apocalypse, end of the world. Mike Pompeo literally once in the camp said, "Until we'll fight until the Armageddon," and fire. I mean, they take it literally. So those are the biggest supporters of Zionism are the Psycho-American Christians, and of course these Psycho-American Christians. And Armenian Christians who've been there for thousands of years, and Palestinian Christians who invented probably Christianity have been there for thousands of years. These they're not recognized as Christians because their skin's too dark or whatever.
Yeah, there's
the
African Jewish people that were getting they were going there
they were getting sterilized.
Yeah, they were getting.
So yeah, but anyways, so they've been indiscriminately bombing churches. American Christians don't even care. In fact, it seems like some direct descendants of the apostles, that line might get wiped out.
White Christians, they don't care.
I know, but these literally in Palestine, there will be some direct descendants of the apostles that are going to get
Bless you.
Yeah. The Christian Zionist interpretation is disgusting. It is founded in anti-Semitism. Their belief and want of 2/3 of our Jewish brothers and sisters would be slain in a final battle, and the last third would be converted. That sounds like Ante Pavlich's ideology. That was his ideology, literally. He had 1/3 conversion, 1/3 expulsion, and 1/3 killed. Sadly, yes. Some do. Usually, it's Lebanese Christians, or they were when France recolonized them, they reconverted some people, and so they have this Catholic. Yeah.
I mean, and in the history of things, I would say that Christians were worse to Jewish people than Muslims ever were.
Oh, absolutely. The Ottoman Empire, till the end, supported Jews. I mean, after the Spanish Inquisition, it was the Ottoman Empire that took them all. In fact, a lot of the anti-Semitism claims coming from the Arab world is Israel. Israel used to do this. It's totally psychotic. They did this both in Eastern Europe and in the Arab world, where they would bomb synagogues and then say, "Look at all the anti-Semitism. You need to flee." And so they actually did. Yeah. So there was a synagogue in Baghdad that was bombed, and people blamed it on anti-Semitism in Iraq. But that was not what happened.
There was chalk art outside of one of the universities, colleges, whatever. That was
the Mossad.
And they wrote
today, in Stanford. Okay, today some Zionists wrote some swastikas or some anti-Semitic crap. And
it was no swastikas, it was just words, and they chalk arted it, and it was actually
a false flag.
Yeah. It was they actually, the Zionists put it there, and they tried to, and some I don't know, one of the news places kept using it. I think one of those stupid ones like Newsweek or something kept using the same picture and saying that it was already said that it wasn't.
Yeah. But then it's really funny. During Russiagate, they accused like a Russian Jew of putting swastikas in like this Ukrainian Jewish cemetery to make Ukrainians look anti-Semitic, and I'm like, oh god. No, it was, yeah, and I'm like, no, I bet you this did not happen.
Yeah.
If you understood what that. Yeah, Wahhabism was also created by British. I wrote the article about it called "Soldiers of the Empire." Yeah, he is really psycho, and his like. Oh, okay. About 10 years ago, his psychiatrist committed suicide. And this year, also, his psychiatrist committed suicide. But why does he need, like, why doesn't he just get the meds delivered to him and not have a psychiatrist who needs to commit suicide? That I don't know.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know. It's also very strange that he'd admit to a psychiatrist, too. That's weird.
Well, if he needs meds prescribed,
yeah,
I guess. But I feel like he can get meds the same as Prime Minister. I'm sure he has enough leverage to get these meds delivered to him without having to
they
go
get
to
Viagra in the Congress floor just delivered there. What? No, was it Viagra and stroke medicine? No, what was the other one?
I don't remember.
There's like another. So it's the one of the pharmacists was saying that they deliver a lot of Viagra and something to do with dementia, like dementia medicine.
Oh Lord. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. See, 2010, the psychiatrist of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu commits suicide. June 23rd, 2010. Yesterday.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh at someone committing suicide, but
no. So 2 psychiatrists of his have committed suicide.
Usually, psychiatrists too have their own psychiatrist. Like there's a big network of them. They kind of like help each other like through stuff like normally. So yeah, I'm not buying a suicide of a psychiatrist.
2 of them now.
Nice.
One in 2010
he's
and
really
one this year.
Like he really can drive someone. I don't know.
No, there's no way 2 of them. I think I feel like their suicide is like Epstein's suicide.
Is there a lot of suicides around him?
Around Epstein?
Oh no, around BB.
Netanyahu? I want to check. I've never thought about that until today. I will do a thorough research on people who commit suicide near Netanyahu. Because that would be weird.
If it happens more than once a year. If it happens to psychiatrists, it's weird enough. So.
Yeah. So maybe, like that really needs to raise red flags if other people around him are randomly committing suicide.
Yeah. Well, they look at the Clinton files.
Yeah. But the Clintons, you don't have to go through that fine detail. Just look at Yugoslavia, and those are all the evil you need to know.
Yeah.
No.
Like Haiti was pretty evil.
Haiti was pretty evil. Yugoslavia was pretty evil. Bombing and sanctioning Iraq. But Yugoslavia was probably the most evil thing the Clintons did.
Yeah.
Like the entire Clinton's presidency was based on basically destroying Yugoslavia.
And then just cackling at deaths while you're, Secretary of State or.
She apparently wasn't able to do much besides weapons deal. Oh, she totally the Clinton Foundation totally money laundered for weapons. You can see the Saudis donate the Saudis weapons.
Yeah.
And then right after she was not president, the foundation couldn't find a single dollar. Like they had to dissolve itself because they were like a money laundering thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. They limit the when it's like 30 million. Exactly.
I know.
I know it's stupid. Like that's why I don't find these
Yeah,
right wing. Yeah, it's like no, just literally. There's Yugoslavia, Iraq, Haiti. Um,
but those are all just, brown and black people.
okay,
Those
no,
aren't,
Yugoslavia is
they're
kind of
political.
white people. There's some maybe most are whitish people or people who would
Yeah.
in America. Yeah,
But I like it's just the fact that it's not, you don't have a name. You can't put a single name to it because people can't think of. They think, oh, this one person was killed. Oh no! But then 10,000 people have died.
entire
Like
villages went dark.
families, entire family.
Entire well under the when the Yugoslav so the Bosnian side hired terrorists like Al Qaeda. Croats hired like the exile Ustazi. Entire villages just disappeared, like thousands in the hundreds. Like no one survived. So when you can name entire villages disappearing, I feel like you don't need to name names.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have to, but that's the mindset of people. Like they're like, oh, like they killed, Joe Schmo down there. And you know that person's name and you can say that. That's why they
killed everyone in
killed the whole village.
in somewhere in Papa, Michigan.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, just killing a whole village in the middle of America.
Yeah. I mentioned Papa, Michigan because that was the one village I can think of. What else?
W or P-A-U?
PAW. It's it's an indigenous. It's a I forgot which nation it was there, but it was maybe the Potawatomi.
Oh, all right, okay.
So it's something in their language, and you can tell when it's a settler colony that just steals people's houses because they still keep the indigenous names like Michigan, Illinois, Connecticut, Massachusetts.
I think there's like 30. I think 30 of the states are actually like Kentucky is one.
Yeah,
Arkansas and Kansas. Like they all are
indigenous names, and but when the cities have it, it usually means that they were like a real city with like houses and so the settler colonialists just came. They try to and when you see the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, like they take up like 8 states and like all of Quebec before the Europeans come in. There is no way like that's like really a big area. They made a big population, and like they try to claim that there was just like tents or whatever, but no. If there were tents, these cities would be named King, like New George, or King after King Charles V, or like.
Well, even the one in Connecticut that they did for that thing where you did the Thanksgiving.
The P Canal.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah,
they
burned
were behind walls. They had the wall built up around them. They had like a little fortress area where they lived. And
exactly.
So I mean, they
had full civilization.
Yeah, it's not like they didn't have civilization.
Yeah. If they didn't have everything, they wouldn't go settle there. Like you wouldn't like if you're some like fail son from England, you would not know how to survive if it's like forced.
They do the same with the Palestinians. Like one of the things they say, like they were nomadic.
No,
they don't belong to this land because they were but they were nomads in that area.
No, they weren't nomads. The Bedouins were nomads, and Israel got rid of. There are no Bedouins. Israel successfully exterminated them.
Yeah. So I mean, they're not. But like that's the whole thing. Like, okay, so like I live in an area where they hunted, and I live right near a river that they fished on, and I know this stuff now. I know why they hunted on my land and didn't farm it, because it's a bunch of shale and stuff like that. And like, so there was people all living here. I actually live in an area that they the indigenous burnt down a whole bunch of the houses. So like
Good.
a lot of the, like, we're in Massachusetts, so you get like a old houses. So there's one little old house down the street. They actually moved it they moved it from one area to another. So it's not originally where it was, but that was the only house left standing in this whole area after this came and burnt them all down.
Thank
So
you.
now,
Asimina triloba, American papa, a small deciduous tree native to eastern United States and Canada, producing a large yellowish green to brown fruit. Oh yeah, yes, that. But the population that existed within what is now Israel is gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then you'll see that that's why in America there's so many, California, Oregon,
but that, I mean,
Idaho,
capitalism.
Iowa.
You feel like you can't have like these communities. You can't have like a whole bunch of people living, behind this fortress wall. Oh, but they don't have, actual houses built.
They do.
So that, they don't really have that land. They don't have like property. They themselves,
they had different laws of property.
Like have their own property. So like
no, they had different laws of property, but they did have their own laws.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like it's complete, like for the fact that, in the 1800s, the Jewish and the Muslims were living together in this area. Like, you have a lot of people that they have people that spoke on that they lived before the Zionists.
Yeah, and they were Jewish people who looked pretty Arabic, and they spoke Arabic. No one spoke Hebrew. Hebrew was a fake language, dead language, that this like one of the psycho leaders of Israel revived.
Yeah.
No one spoke Hebrew, but it was like to create like a fake national identity. He revived it.
Yeah.
So it's like reviving Sanskrit or Latin. Sanskrit.
Well, it's also is it like it's almost like, the whole game of taking people's identity and you claiming. So the Zionists are like taking from the the Jewish community and saying like, this is us. We're the Jewish community.
Well, except that no one spoke Hebrew ever in existence. It was never a spoken language. It was always like a language of the intellectuals.
Yeah.
So and so but a lot of local people were like, a lot of the people who immigrated there were speaking, I don't know, many different languages.
Yeah.
Some of them gone now. But the identity was to assimilate everyone and make everyone like forget about what they were and just create a new kind of like it's exactly like the U.S. How they had in the U.S. they had these like psychotic citizenship ceremonies where you're supposed to take off your native clothes and abandon your native religion and change your name to John.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like there's, I mean, they had this weird psychotic like citizenship ceremonies, and it's the same thing there. And the thing is that most people don't realize this: most Holocaust victims did not go to Israel.
No.
Most Israelis are not Holocaust victims.
Nope.
Most Holocaust victims were poor people, like who just had to stay where they were. Like,
they didn't have the chance to get out. Like they
couldn't even go back. Like let's say that they were sent to Auschwitz from whatever country, make it Czechoslovakia. They were so poor that they didn't even have the ability to leave go back home. They needed. So to come to Israel, Israel actually discarded some displaced people. Like they were like, he's not strong enough. He's too old. Oh, he spent too many years. His bones he's weak. And so they actually
eugenics in a way, like
Yeah, they discarded actual Holocaust victims because they wanted us
anyone that was like disabled or like
yeah. Yeah, so I believe that is the language. Kind of, yeah. They it was done over like a quick 10-year period. I feel yeah, but yeah, yeah. Um, and I don't know. Maybe it is made up. I don't know. Look up Idaho. I was once like on Ron Placone's show, and I kind of was a little stoned, so I forgot if Idaho was a real place or not. And I was like, "Is Idaho actually exist?" And he was like, "Oh God."
Asha has issues when she gets stoned, but
Yeah,
they're
so-
good issues.
Like you forget
They're
if Idaho exists. Maybe Idaho didn't exist. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of them they're close enough to a word.
Yeah, Illinois is the actual pronunciation is Illini, and it's close enough that.
Yeah, that they use something that was close enough to a word. Like
yeah,
I don't know what it was. It was a few years ago. I was reading about all of them. There's like 30 of the states. Like
yeah. Michigan, Wisconsin, probably Minnesota. I think everything that's not Virginia, Georgia, New York, New Jersey.
That's
not Carolina.
Not named after something in England.
New Haven. I mean, no, New Hampshire. What's the other one?
Is Maine might not be.
Maine might be or might not be.
Florida is a.
Florida is a Spanish name. Flor, land of flowers.
Yeah. And so Georgia, Virginia, the Carolinas, the Dakotas that's
native probably.
Well, it is. It's Lakota, Dakota.
Oh, the Lakota, and it got changed a little bit.
Well, there's Lakotas and there's Dakotas. Like
they're two groups. Okay. Okay.
I think they're in the same language group or something.
Okay. Louisiana is named after the loser king who lost the French Revolution.
True.
Yeah, he got like it's funny because in Kentucky there's like a big King Louis statue. And
what the hell is Texas named after?
What?
What is Texas?
Texas, I don't know.
Even that name. I don't even know. Maybe that has to be Spanish.
Maryland is definitely okay. Maryland, Washington, New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island.
Rhode Island and the plantations. No, they changed that like 5 years ago. Finally.
What?
Rhode Island's real name was Rhode Island and the Plantations. That was the full name of Rhode Island, and it was only like within the last 10 years that they took off the
plantations. Yeah, that was wise. Okay, so then there's the Spanish. Okay, not indigenous. Okay, Florida, Colorado. Those are Spanish names clearly. New Mexico. But Mexico was the name of like the biggest.
Yeah, that's why I think Texas might be too, because Mexico with the X, they use the indigenous down.
A lot of
X and stuff.
So Mexico was so New Mexico. It could count because Mexico was the biggest nation in that region.
Well, I think.
Okay. That makes sense. The most Bedouins in Israel live in the city of Rajat or Rahat, built in the 90s, around 70K. They are not nomads. Rest of them became Egyptians when Israel handed back the Sinai Desert to Egypt. Okay, that's good. So that's good to know.
Rhode Island and the Plantations.
Yeah, that's just awful. Rhode Island. Oh, in South Carolina, you have all these like streets named Rosemary Plantation.
I know.
Oh, but the really funniest thing is that okay, so I didn't know this, but I think it's like there's an Van der Zwijgen or something like that in South Carolina. There's I expected when you see I think I can't remember the exact Dutch name, but it's a very, very Dutch name. So I expected like some Dutch person to be there, but it was actually like an old black lady. And and there are a lot of people with this Dutch last name. And then I realized that slave owners often forced slaves to take up their last names.
Their last names,
And so I did not know that.
In my, like, I have Van Cleeks. Van Cleeks were my Dutch. Going back, Yeah. I'm second gen only because my Dutch relatives moved up to after they were Tories, so they moved to Canada. So then my father moved down here. So yeah,
Okay. But it's funny. There's a big population of Black people with this extremely Dutch last name, and I was surprised.
Is it Virginia? In Virginia, or where did you say?
In South Carolina.
I don't know Dutch down in South Carolina as much.
No. There was one Dutch plantation owner who owned a lot of slaves.
Yeah. No, there was definitely Dutch plantation owners.
But this one owned this particular one.
After that guy.
yeah, and all of but 90% of them are Black, and I was like, whoa, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then somebody told me that's what happened.
Well, I mean, you have like Washington, Jefferson, like these are all names that.
Okay.
Some of them picked them after but a lot of them had their slave masters' last name.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm just saying there's one Dutch guy who owned a lot of slaves in what is now Myrtle Beach, is all I can say.
Maine is French. Yeah.
Maine is French. Okay. So Louisiana, after a loser French king, got beheaded.
Well, Maine was actually, it was weird because Maine was part of Massachusetts for a long time. Even when New Hampshire was made, Maine was still part of Massachusetts.
Why did they separate?
Well, they were separated by New Hampshire anyways, but
okay.
I don't know why. I don't know why they broke off. Massachusetts was huge at one point. Like it had parts of New York and like
interesting.
And then they kind of made it what it is now. Whatever.
That's very interesting.
Whatever.
Yeah. Arkansas is French. Kansas is indigenous. Vermont is French. Okay. Vermont means Green Mountain.
Oh yeah, Green Mountain.
Yeah.
No, I thought. Well, what I read was because of like Kansas is indigenous. The Kansas was
made up
from the indigenous.
Arkansas, like a French person. That could be a French person badly understanding.
It came from the same sense of what they were naming Kansas.
Alabama used to be Florida. Okay.
Alabama used to be Florida. Alabama used to be Florida. Oh yeah. I think some of Louisiana too was part of Florida.
And then they split it up.
Yeah.
Why?
Probably just governance because you had states' rights and stuff like that. So
okay. Okay. And then Florida had all these Gusanos in.
Yeah, that was later.
And then that ruined everything in Florida, I think.
Yeah.
It's called West Florida. Yeah. I remember going to Miami and so a lot of people speak Spanish there. So there's two kinds of people. There's like the Dominican people who speak Spanish, and then there's the Gusanos, and it's very clear who's who.
Yeah, they don't actually get along.
Yeah. No one likes the Gusanos.
No. Well, there's some people that like the Gusanos. Who? There are people we don't like.
Okay.
Just right-winger, weird people.
Yeah. The Gusanos are like the really psycho right-wingers. They're like worse than most Republicans. Like they're the worst. Marco Rubio, like the worst Republicans are Gusanos. Senator Bob Mendez isn't even a Gusano because his dad moved 5 years before the Cuban Revolution. He said it was like his dad had a habit of hiding money because of Castro. First of all, his dad was a carpenter, so he had no money.
Yeah.
Second of all, he moved before the revolution, so what is he talking about?
Weird. People like
It was Louisiana wasn't part of it was brought from Napoleon and it stretched all the way to Montana and Washington. Why did Napoleon
oh yeah, Louisiana Purchase was the big.
I know, but why did Napoleon not want this colony?
He probably just too far away. I don't think they were doing. The French were kind of moving away from.
Well, Napoleon was busy trying to conquer Russia and failing.
He probably needed money.
That makes sense. He wasted so much money on the war.
But he needed, so he got rid of that
Louisiana. Okay.
But because when was that? When was the Louisiana Purchase? That was after.
Around it was 1820s when around that's exactly around the time when Napoleon went to try to.
Yeah, I think France, like, they were just, Canada at that point. Like I think they just everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, the French invasion of Russia was on December 1812. Louisiana Purchase.
Oh,
yeah.
So we got Louisiana Purchase to stop the Haitian Revolution.
Oh no! The Louisiana Purchase came in. It was definitely Napoleon. Because Napoleon. However, there was a growing concern in the U.S. that Napoleon would send troops to New Orleans after quelling the. Definitely because he was busy trying to conquer Russia, that he was not doing enough to quash the Haitian Revolution that they tried to buy buy Louisiana.
So he wanted it to be England's problem at the time. No, United States problem. I'm sorry.
He was new. Like he I guess didn't care enough about the Haitian rebellion or revolution.
Yeah.
But the revolution was like entirely a slave-led revolution, the first in history. And they systematically murdered different kinds of Europeans against it. It was really beautifully done, and
Yep.
But so you shouldn't have been holding slaves, anyways. A lot of that's the thing about slavery is that's why American leaders were so obsessed with racial ratios, like ratios of white people to black people, because if you had too many whites working under you, they would just murder you and take your plantation from you and take over the plantation. But if you had too many slaves, they would do the same thing. They would murder you in your sleep, and that's it. So I love Jared. Yes, you have to read everything written by Jared Horn. So in the island countries, Jamaica also kind of rebelled against the slaves were able to control, because literally the master cannot have too many troops because they will mutiny. He cannot have too many slaves, and he always has to pit the troops against the slaves, and it's a very delicate balance. And anything
there was one time, and they got really nervous. This is when they started coming out with the laws and everything in the 16 and 1700s. Is the enslaved population was bigger than the white population in like the Carolinas and stuff.
Oh yeah, that would.
They started freaking out because so probably.
The plantations are really far away. No one's going to hear you if they set fire to your house and murder you in your sleep.
Yeah. And I don't think, there's so many stories we didn't hear of so many of them just rising up and,
Oh, and yes, there are,
even the suicides, I know that's not rising up, but that was.
Yeah, there were, there was plenty of sabotage that the slaves did. Yeah. No one wants to be a slave. As Michael Parenti explains, when you ask the slaves, it's not, people were against, they were absolute. So yes, it's very, very hard to keep that up. incredibly hard because it has to be so exact, and one little off balance and boom, everything. And so yes, the one thing is, after the Haitian Revolution, they panicked also. No. The counter, no, that's not what happened. Okay, in Britain in 1792, they said that you cannot have slavery on Britain, the island. So this slave who ran away from, he was a slave of one of the owners, like were American. He ran away into England and asked the crown for asylum because and they said, that's when I forgot the name of that case, but that case made it, and the slaves in everywhere started talking about that case, and that made them scared enough to do the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
And well, they were afraid that England was going to not let them have more slaves. Because the taxation with that was so bullshit, because they actually had to pay less taxes than any other citizen under the crown.
No, they were more worried about losing the slaves. And they had like, even like in, because before we had Florida and in the Spaniards had it. The Spaniards, not that they were nice people, they were fucking horrendous people, but they allowed the slaves to run down there because the Seminoles are still there. So like, if you were a slave and you could make it to Florida, you could.
Yeah, well, the Spaniards had other colonies, so they were more likely to use Africans as mercenaries because they had so much. So for them, slavery itself was not that profitable because, like, they
well, at that point, like, I mean, they made their money early
off
on
of gold
from Columbus, and then they weren't making their money over here, so they weren't making as much.
Well, they weren't making it from slavery because like the areas they had, like, it was much easier to just dig the gold and get the gold out.
Yeah, and then
that's why they were more likely to hire African mercenaries, or African American mercenaries, or African mercenaries, or both. Actually, with Columbus, actually came like the first. Like, there were a few black people on Columbus's crew.
Yeah.
So it was. The U.S. that's why the U.S. is actually more racist than almost any other, even apartheid South Africa, in my opinion. I've had people from apartheid South Africa say, yeah, I feel it's more racist than that. Yes, more conquistadors. Yep, that's right. But yeah, so that's how. What was the case? I can't think of the case, but but after that, like, what was that case? Gerald Horner.
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of
There was a case in 1792 in England that scared this. No, not 1792. It must have happened before 1772, maybe. That basically said slavery is illegal. Not that England abolished slavery; they just used the coolie trade, just changed the format.
The case of Somerset versus Stewart.
Yep, that's the one.
And
what year did that?
1771.
Yeah, that's why they did the Declaration.
And then it was abolished slavery in England in 1772.
Okay, that's exactly why they did the Declaration. And that case somehow made it over, like, the rumors or like news of that case made it to everyone, and a lot of slaves started to talk about this. And that's actually why, like, you can see that a lot of the slaves fought on the side of the British, including George Washington's slaves. He actually, like, defected to the British Army.
Yeah. No, I mean, what are you gonna do? You want your freedom. You're gonna fight with the ones that are gonna offer you, fight, and you get your freedom. So you're like, to that, like, if you're an enslaved person, you might be, all right, either I die or I'm free. That's better than being enslaved. So.
Yeah. So a lot of them did, and so read The Counter-Revolution of 1776.
Yeah, that's a good book.
Yeah, and then you'll understand that everything. It's like the U.S. is a perfectly designed system in order to protect people with property from their property or whatever.
And people don't like it. It's amazing to me because even like you can talk to someone about that. Someone that, like my father, I can say, hey, like, the revolution was really, like one of the big problem wasn't the taxation. They were,
Then,
it was the slavery, like
yeah.
rid of slavery, and they were afraid they were going to do that over here. And he's like, never would have thought that, never would have heard of it. But there's documentation out there.
Well, I mean, if you can read through the founders' own writings, it's horrible, boring, and they're bad writers because they're all stupid fail sons. They say that out loud, and like if you can read the Federalist Papers, you'll see it's horrible and boring. That's why most people don't read it because they're just untalented, boring.
Yeah.
Fail sons.
But it's also, you don't like, even like in reading Zinn when he does the history stuff and he talks about like say Columbus and he's talking about Columbus and he says he even reads the ones that glorify Columbus and like within what they're writing, it's saying the atrocities that Columbus did. Columbus's own journal is saying the atrocities he did. And people are still like, yeah.
Well, you know that he was arrested. He was the final journey. He was arrested in Spain, and he was stripped of everything, put under trial, and he also had to go into hiding and live in obscurity for the rest of his life, even when he was living in Spain. So his mythology was resurrected by Americans. And Spanish people didn't want anything to do with him.
They were done with him. I mean, and it's just,
okay. This is also true. Slavery was a major part, but don't forget the English was tired of spending blood. They're never tired of spending blood, but coin, yes, going further west. However, Washington and others were land speculators that wanted to continue west at all costs. That makes sense. Yep.
So Manifest Destiny.
Yeah.
It was not named yet, but was a big reason.
Okay, that makes sense. So, that makes sense also why most of the indigenous nations fought on the side of the British.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
When you have to learn...
My family just kind of abstained from it, but I'm not saying that my family was any... Like, the Van Cleeks of Poughkeepsie, New York. And can't find if they had slaves, but I'm pretty goddamn sure they did.
Okay. Yeah. I prefer doing genealogy of people in Russia because it's different. Like everyone who's alive there, 3 generations back.
Yeah, I too. So my mom is second gen Irish. Like my father's family was over in the Americas, but my mom was, and I like to the Irish stuff, but it's really hard too with the Irish stuff because the English tend to burn a lot of their records.
Well, with the Russian stuff, like I said, it's amazing. What their 3 generations ago, they were just worse than India.
Oh yeah,
and then the Soviet Union happens, and then suddenly, whoa, everything changed. And in order for the Soviet to happen, these people who were slaves literally just stepped up to the plate and did all sorts of heroics.
Yeah.
Because life sucks up so much for them. They were like, oh, So one article that was really funny is I saw this New York Times article sneering in 1918 that Russia has a 1 million strong, the Red Army is 1 million strong. And they're like, no way that the Bolsheviks are lying. Guess what? Enough people, there were 100 million people in Russia back then, or a little bit more.
Yeah.
1 million, it was not 1 million strong. It was 3 million strong.
It would have to be, you would think.
Yeah. That's why like they were able to crush all the 14 countries despite having no weapons. I mean, and everyone in the world being against them. Yeah, and it's like, how can you? It was funny how they were these Wall Street speculators who had investments with the czar couldn't believe that 1 million people would volunteer to be on the side of the Reds, and their money. It's like, yeah, you're. No, it's like the first time their money couldn't buy something, and
Yeah.
they were mad, and you can see they were like mad for the next 170 years every single day because they realized the limits of what their money could and could not buy.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's the first time this happened to all these speculators. And so when you read all this like really stupid propaganda from back then, and all the complaining, and you'll see, oh, I spent so much money on this coal mine and Bolsheviks nationalized it. It's like, oh, sad for you.
Oh well.
Yeah, but yeah, that's all like all the crying, and all of this crying made it to American historiography about the Soviet Union, which is like it had like, but China has its own number of people crying about that, but that has not made it to the historiography. So I wonder what was different. Okay, so yeah, but maybe they were used to it by then, and so they're not so sad crying that publicly.
So we did. You hit on most of the points early on when we were going to talk about the accomplishments of the Bolsheviks.
Oh yeah, well, oh yeah, that one's great. Okay, during this, while they're having 14 countries with no weapons, and in Belarus, where it's like where the middle of the war, like it's like ground zero. They were able to build 445 libraries in 1920. Right after the October Revolution, they said they had this thing where it's called the liquidation of illiteracy. So they built, so they changed the schools from like they took over all the czar schools, made them into secular schools, and then they built another enough schools that every kid could walk to school in Belarus, and everyone from the age of like 7 to 18 had to go to school, but the poor kids got shoes, food, breakfast. The Bolsheviks started the free breakfast idea actually in 1917. And
yeah,
what?
It makes sense because that's, they were, in the Black Panthers were
copying the Bolsheviks,
Leninists, so they knew, that was one of the things that they picked up from that.
Yep. And then for adults, they had teachers go into their factories or farms where they worked, and the factories weren't completely nationalized, but the factory leaders had to give them like a 1 hour learn how to read break in the middle of the shift, and they were taught how to read, and everyone from like 8 to 80 was taught how to read during this time. They also opened up
in the factories too, aren't they?
What?
They did even before, but they would do reading. Like someone would sit there and read to them as they were working.
Yes, they would actually pay like some little kid to come and read to them, like Lenin and Marx, while they were working. And so whenever like Western liberals are like, you're being ableist, I'm like, no, if they can do it while working 20 hours a day, like there's a factory in Kiev that literally required them to work 20 hours a day. You can do it. I mean, you just don't want to. And so, yeah, they would, exactly. So, but then this time teachers and everyone would, the idea was that they would teach them how to read, write, number, counting, whatever. And then they would also train up some locals to be teachers so that they could also, so that they can just go around their community. And this is the same model Cuba used, Nicaragua used. Nicaragua eliminated illiteracy in 5 months.
Yeah.
No.
Cuba was pretty quick too, wasn't it?
About 2 years. The Bolshevik took about 10 years, but that's because they didn't have the same, like in the 1979, it's much more easier to travel to places than in 1917.
Yeah.
So that's why Nicaragua was able to do it so quickly. But yeah, oh, and then free healthcare, like they built so many hospitals in the middle of a war that basically, and then they brought they trained people in different aspects of medicine. They opened up the first medical school, and so and this was all when they were fighting a war against 14 countries and their gangs of psychos.
Yeah.
If they can do it during that time, it's like the Democrats like have no excuse. Like there's like nobody who had it harder than the Bolsheviks. And literally during this all happened before 1922, where they signed the peace agreement. So this was, and Belarus was ground zero. So it kept on changing from like German occupation to Polish to psycho warlord to American-backed psycho warlord to British-backed psycho warlord to German-backed, and then back to the Bolshevik. Like it kept on changing, and they managed somehow.
Yep.
So, and I think a lot of governments today don't want to set such high standards for themselves, so that's why they prefer to demonize.
Well, I mean, the United States, our literacy rate is actually declining.
Yeah, so many adults don't have functional literacy. They go to school, but how do you go to school without learning? I don't know. I don't understand that.
Well, I think it's like they're saying that they only teach up to like 6th grade level. Like people are only getting. Like,
so, but how are they passing high school then?
They just pass people. I mean, it's like.
Why?
If you can, I don't know, if you can get people through a test, but it could have a lot of different factors. You'd have to look at where is the illiteracy, like is it in sections where there's a lot of homeschooling or something like that, or is there
homeschooling should definitely be banned, in my opinion.
I know you don't like homeschooling.
No, I don't, because
no, and I know why you don't, so I get it.
Yeah.
But it's, I think like it just really depends, but that you can look through a lot of like schools in the cities that don't have a lot of funding. They just end up passing people. They like don't want to deal with them anymore. Or they don't want to, you know what I'm saying? Like it's you don't really have like people being held back. They didn't ever catch my dyslexia. I didn't know I was dyslexic until I was 21.
Wow.
I was in college when they figured it out. They didn't catch mine. Like,
wow, that's crazy.
I just had I just thought that was normal. Like me having issues, I trained my own way of getting through it. Like I liked reading, so I had to figure out a way.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know. Like I just thought it was like everyone had the same issues I had.
Okay. Well, I realized today, I kind of realized my issue with writing is that sometimes I get lost in like I go off track. So I was actually debunking the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. And then for some odd reason, halfway through the article, I realized I am talking about the debt repayment plan that Poland has to do to the US and the UK. And I'm like, wait a minute. How is this related to the Molotov? It's not.
You could try outlines, but it's still going to happen.
Yes, no. But then, there's a big, long essay about the history of Poland between 1921 and 1926 that no one really, that can, I can probably make it on its own to a new article, but it does not belong on the article of Molotov-Ribbentrop, because that's just, the first point I was trying to make was that invading Poland was valid because Poland had taken half of Belarus, Ukraine, and Lithuania. So that's just taking your land back. That's not really aggression.
Yeah.
That's
Daryl, I just want to bring up Daryl is saying the U.S. Department of Education, like from Reagan on, it's the prison pipeline. He's right.
He's right. 100%. He's
The
right.
prison pipeline was the thing, and that's why they don't really care if certain people can read or not. They don't care. They're training you to be just a good little worker or make money for capitalists in some way. So either you have to be a prisoner, make money for them, or you have to be whatever.
That's it. And then like I look at the textbooks from the Soviet Union, and like it is so well written that they actually don't even need a teacher. Like I was looking at a geometry textbook, and so it's like they're actually learning Russian is like opening the world to a whole wealth of knowledge, because a lot of this is not translated,
or correctly, like translated correctly either.
Well, most of them are just not translated; they're just there. But I can now get access to them. But it's been amazing. What the work of the communists were like, all these books, these sci-fi books. Okay, so this is one fake rumor. They claim that 1984 was banned in the USSR. No, it wasn't. It was just not translated because it's hard to translate that book. But George Orwell stole from a book written in the USSR called Me, which means we. And that's like, that's actually talking about the factory under capitalism. And when you read 1984, you also know he's not talking about communism, because he's like literally talking about imperialism, like with Oceania, with Britain. He's mainly critiquing Britain and imperialism. But even then, like, it was not banned in the Soviet Union. It was just not translated, and it doesn't. In fact, it wasn't even translated to French until like the 1980s, because it's a hard book to translate. So most places that didn't speak English just didn't have the ability. They just didn't want to waste their time translating it.
Yeah, there's so much that we don't know. Like there's so much that we don't get from other countries because of the language stuff. So
that's what I've been noticing. It's like their textbooks were amazing. Somebody needs who has more energy than me, who can
do translations. Well, what? So right now you're working on a bunch of like a set of articles
about. I'm doing a compendium on fascism where I'm.
And we're gonna do some video. Why can't I talk right now?
Yeah, we're gonna do some video montages. Yes, I am alive and happy and well. It's just a lot happened and I couldn't come on, and now I can.
Yeah, well, you were off too. I mean, you were visiting war-torn areas too.
So for a while, I was visiting war-torn areas, so I didn't really have stable internet, and then I had to come to the U.S. for a while, and then there were some issues I had personally for a while, so I wasn't able to think clearly. So
but we're gonna
it'll debunk everything, single lie, stupid thing they say about fascism, and every single myth. Like, we were against the fascists. No, you weren't. There are so many people who say they were against the fascists in 46 who were not against the fascists in 33.
Yeah, I mean, they don't give teachers the
money or the training or the resources or the class sizes or the aids.
COVID, my brother became a teacher.
Nope.
Um,
I will be going to Russia very soon. Just haven't decided on the date, but I'm in Connecticut now.
Connecticut, Russia, those are like worlds apart. That's like two different Connecticut. I can't stand Connecticut. I don't know why you bring it up.
It's so boring. It's like one of the most. I fall asleep here.
It's
Like
the worst state to drive through.
yeah, and it's so boring here. Everyone here is so boring.
Work areas. They put up fake work areas on 95 constantly.
Yeah, and then everyone here is incredibly boring. Timothy Schneider. You all know how he last year accused me of not being in Russia after saying a lie.
Yeah.
Okay, so he said that it's illegal to talk about the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact in Russia. So I opened up my phone and it's like, Molotov-Ribbentrop. This was when I had my TikTok. Molotov-Ribbentrop. I said it in Russian and nothing happened to me. I said it in front of police officers. Nothing happened to me because it's not. Anyways, and then his response was literally that I was not in Russia.
You were doing backdrops.
Yeah. What? I mean, I don't know. Like, I was in front of a Lenin statue, in front of a police station. Like, it's clear that I wasn't. Like, there's no way you can think
bought
of
the costumes. You faked the statue. Come on, Echo.
I actually prefer the cold.
You were never. I drove you to Logan that day, and you just turned around and went back to Connecticut.
Exactly. No, yeah, I know, but it's like, yeah. But so he's a professor at Yale. And he hangs out at this coffee shop. So I was like walking through and I saw him from a distance and I didn't go in because I didn't want that awkwardness.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell are you doing in this coffee shop? I was kind of annoyed.
Well, yeah, we're not talking about the Midwest. I'm New England.
Yeah, the Midwest, yeah.
The Midwest is least
Indiana is boring, yes, but who cares?
It's pretty though.
Очень хорошо. Я говорю по-русски. Я понимаю все. Okay, that's it. With the Lenin statues, yes.
Actually, you were in St. Petersburg.
Okay, well, after the revolution, we're renaming that St. Petersburg, Florida, as Leningrad.
Leningrad,
Florida.
Yeah.
Florida's a harmless.
The Lenin states of it can't be America.
Florida is a Spanish name. It means land of flowers. Fine, it can stay.
Okay. What?
Okay. So Moscow looks like everything's made of gingerbread. St. Petersburg looks less like everything's made of gingerbread. I don't know how to explain it. The buildings in Moscow literally look like they're made out of like cupcakes. St. Petersburg has really old buildings, but only one building looks like it's made out of a cupcake. What else? There are rivers in both Moscow and St. Petersburg, but St. Petersburg, there's like a whole bunch of islands, and so the city is like more like Manhattan, more like New York City, in that there's a lot of islands and disparate islands that they have to kind of go through. Moscow is not like a disparate island; it's just a big sprawl.
Yeah, is the weather the same in both places?
It's a little bit more snow in St. Petersburg than Moscow.
Yeah.
And the sun stays up later in St. Petersburg than Moscow.
Yeah, because it's north of Moscow. What is it, north?
Yeah, it's definitely north of Moscow. And yes, Gorky Park in Moscow is beautiful. The food's actually about, in Moscow, you can find more international food. Like you can find Vietnamese, you can find Vietnamese and Thai here too, but not here, but they're like more esoteric international. Like if you want Ethiopian or something like that, you can find that.
Moscow be more the touristy. Is that why? Because they have more?
No, it's the capital and it has a way bigger population.
Oh, okay.
there's about 2 million in St. Petersburg and 20 million in Moscow. And other than that, yeah, it's about the same.
Where else have you gone? You went to
Ulyanovsk.
Yeah.
The food there is not bad. They're near the Volga River. It's very beautiful. Actually, everyone in Russia is super nice. Moscow. Oh, I know why you dislike Moscow. Moscow has more liberals. Yeah. St. Petersburg does not have that many liberals.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, Moscow has way too many liberals. It's kind of gross. It gets gross to see liberals in Russia. And the less away from the center. Okay, so I went to Ulyanovsk. I also went to Lugansk and Donetsk. Lugansk and Donetsk have 0 liberals. The war just erased the liberal.
Well, it makes everyone pretty radical, I guess.
Yeah. And of course, you don't have that much variety in food because it's a war zone.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. Like U.S. No, there are different Russian liberals are different than U.S. liberals. They're more like gusanos, Cuban gusanos, but they're not psycho as Cuban gusanos, but they have that little tinge of gusanoism in them.
See, I would think gusanos are more conservative.
Yeah, but no. Russian liberals are okay. So they are so Russian liberals are extremely critical and of Russia and extremely admiring of the West because that's just an annoying tendency. They're a lot more like Indian liberals, just like that. That's why they're yeah.
All right, I see what you're saying. They want to be Westerners, basically.
Yeah, and exactly, and they'll never be, but they're too not smart to realize that.
Well, go take your meds. Huh? Go take your meds.
Funny, I was talking to Robert about it, and that was
they're definitely out of fashion. Because like right now, like they're definitely right now in Russia, like everything Chinese is in fashion. Like almost everyone in Russia is learning Chinese. Like yeah, it's really like they buy a lot of like, whatever's in fashion in China. Like they eat a lot of Chinese food. Everything Chinese is in fashion.
Real Chinese food, not like us.
I don't know. Some kind of it's probably from a different region in China.
Yeah,
it tastes different. I don't know what's real.
Chinese food isn't.
I don't know what's real, what's not. Because I've never been to China.
I mean, the dumplings and stuff are, but
I
don't have like chicken fingers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but liberals have definitely gone out of fashion since I don't know when did I don't understand when exactly liberals went out of fashion in Russia, because the first time I went there was 2019 and they were already out of fashion back then. Yeah, I can't remember when they went out of fashion.
Was there a lot of communists?
Oh yeah, basically there's active communists and then people who have Soviet nostalgia. And the people who are active communists sneer at the Soviet nostalgia people.
Why do they sneer at it?
Because they're just like dreaming about the Soviet was better, but not actually fighting for dictatorship of the proletariat. I'm okay with either kind.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I mean, even if you're just like nostalgic for it, like if the fight was to come, then you're closer to joining that fight. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's kind of funny. The younger generation, like the Gen X, the whatever millennials and youngers, like they also never lived in the Soviet Union, but they still have Soviet nostalgia. And I'm like, ooh, how did you get? That's the weird magical part, is that you have not I'm like so confused about how that happened.
Well, it's kind of like how there's a bunch of American USians that think that the 1950s was the best time, and they weren't alive in the 1950s. A lot of these right wingers, they weren't.
I know, but
No, but
when the Russian says the 1950s were the best time, that's actually 100% true.
yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Like it doesn't necessarily it's who's telling you about the glory days. So they probably had their parents were
Yeah.
so they were raised right.
Oh well, Joe Biden or something's trying to say like he wants to take Russia back to the 1800s. What did he say something about that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, then when you look at the borders of Russia back in the 1800s, I'm like cool with that because then you get rid of all the horrible Nazi reactionary countries in the Baltics. No more Poland. I'm okay with that. Yeah, American nostalgia is just racism. Yeah, Russian nostalgia is Soviet nostalgia is not is the opposite of racism.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, like I'm just saying, like in the sense that you can see, good stuff. Like, and that's the whole thing. If you're propagandize with the good actual facts and stuff, then you can.
No, he said Joe Biden said something awful about taking Russia back, whatever.
To
So
the 1800s or something.
yeah, and I was yeah.
It was some reference to the Tsar, but like.
Oh yeah, but if you look at the landing, yeah. Yes, I lived with the Russian lady, so basically she would not let me go until like I ate like way too much, like way too much. There's a lot, but I will. I feel like I should do like a food tour, like
You should.
but I know, but I need a cameraman, and I don't have money for a cameraman, and it gets exhausting. I have taken. Oh no! In Mariupol, I did go to an Uzbekistani restaurant and did a food tour of that one restaurant. I just haven't had the energy to translate it. I will translate it and put it up. But it was weird that Mariupol had this halal restaurant in the middle of a war zone. Like that was a strange thing. There's like everything's destroyed there, but there is, and that's because a lot of people who are reconstructing it, they're from the Stan Republic, like Tajikistan and Turkmenistan. So for them, they created a halal restaurant because they're the ones who are reconstructing Mariupol.
Sorry, my dad was popping in. He had forgotten to take his meds earlier now. So we went down to take him, and now the cat is expecting to get treats.
That's exactly what she said. Yeah, that's exactly what she said. She's like, Tonka. I'm like, no, this is naturally me.
Yeah.
Exactly what she said. Okay, so anyways, we will, once we iron out the kinks,
you're gonna get back over to. Well, I mean, maybe we get one more live in before you go, but we don't know.
We don't know. It depends on when I go. So thank you for joining us. We had a long broadcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and go be a paid subscriber, and we're gonna make Historically really awesome for season 6.
Yeah. Yep, we'll get it all together.
Yep. Смерти фашизм, свобода народу.
Bye, everyone.